I'm going to start talking about the eyes being the windows of the soul. Some people say that the eyes are the window of the soul. I say that the eyes give us the context clues that leads us to the hints to help us fully understand and fully grasp one's life story. After all, it is with our eyes that when we reach out our hands to see our newborn baby, it is with our eyes that we're able to fill in the blanks of who that child looks like or who do they take from. All of the uncertainties of having carried that child for 9 months. With our eyes, we picked out our first home. With our eyes, we picked out that first mate, whether it worked out or not. Yes, and so we have a whole lot of experience where our eyes, we've used our eyes to see things and to decipher things. I really want to focus on the part of our life where our eyes have seen some very traumatic things. Some things that we don't often discuss over dinner table. We don't often bring it up to our friends. We definitely don't bring it up to the boardroom. But a lot of times, even though you don't bring the issue to the boardroom, you still might bring the presence of it to the boardroom. So that's the area that I want to focus on. I never thought much about eyes at all until I had a coworker that told me, she said, Romonica, when you learn how to read somebody's eyes, you can truly understand their personality. And she said that she met this lady that we all was working with, and she said when she seen this lady's eyes for the first time, they were very dark and they were very cold. And she said she got chills on the left side of her body. And matter of fact, we was talking about this, and she said that from then on, she knew it would be trouble with this particular individual. And we was talking about this because we were actually discussing some of the trouble that this particular individual had brought to the establishment where we worked at. So I don't really want to focus on just eyes in terms of them being good or being bad or being black or being blue or being brown. I really want to focus on the eyes that have gone aglaze. The eyes when you're talking to somebody and you can tell that they really don't get what you're saying. There's no connection. There's no understanding there. And it's not because you haven't mentioned it or explained it to them 3 or 4 times, 4 different ways. It's because somewhere they are disconnected between your words and what they're actually hearing. And I ran across another individual whose eyes just looked like they were just numb. They were just dead. And I said, God, first of all, I noticed that those eyes looked familiar because my eyes used to be like that. And then I said, well, God, what does that symbolize in the spirit realm for somebody to be talking, to be walking, to be breathing, but somewhere they have no connection with other people. They have no connection with what they're saying. Half of the time they're contradicting themselves. And they're walking, they're living, they're talking, they're breathing. But somewhere they're not connected within themselves. And the Lord told me, he said, that is a sign of being spiritually dead. He said, that's the sign of being spiritually dead. So, and my heart really went out for this person. Not just for the person that was walking and was spiritually dead, but my heart really went out for the person because I realized at that moment that I had been spiritually dead for several years. I got up every morning. I threw makeup on, threw some pink or red lipstick on, threw on a nice outfit, got in the car, whether it was the car that I wanted or whether that it wasn't. And that's what we do. We kiss the kids. We say goodbye to the husband. We get dressed. We go to work. We cook Sunday dinner. And we go through the process. But somewhere we are not connected within ourselves to really know our worth. Because not only have our eyes seen the good things in our adulthood, our eyes have also saw some things in our childhood. Our eyes have seen domestic violence. Our eyes have heard a very critical, lashing tongue who told us who we were and who we weren't. Our eyes have seen some experiences that took place that we decided to tuck in our bedroom and never bring up. Our eyes also embody the emotions. When your eyes is filled with sadness, they automatically overflow with tears. And when they are filled with gladness, they radiate with joy. So we carry the emotions in our eyes of all of our experiences. Whether our eyes showed us where to go to sign the divorce paper, or whether our eyes took and read the termination letter, if we do live through our eyes, it is true, our eyes is the window to the soul. So one thing about becoming a glaze, when your eyes is a glaze, one of the signs of being spiritually dead is going through the motions and not being able to affect change. When you see your life is in the same place, year after year after year, and you're doing everything that you think you're supposed to be doing to affect change in this area, whether it's with your finances, whether it's with your children, whether it's with your friends, whether it's with your relationship, it could even be a health problem. And when you're going through the process, but you're spiritually dead, it is hard to affect change in those areas. One prophet that is very, very popular, his name is Brian Corn. He gave a testimony of a lady who had, her husband had died several years ago, and nothing in her life was progressing at this time. And so she went to Brian Corn, and Brian Corn prophesied over her, and he told her the year. He said, "This year you died." And she immediately started crying because that year her husband died. And her husband and she did bear the same last name. She thought it was a nice gesture to take a picture of herself with her name at the bottom, and she put it in his coffin. And they buried her picture and the name at the bottom in the ground. And Brian Corn had to explain to her, when she did that, she thought it was a good gesture. But in the spirit realm, she had locked up all of her progress in that coffin. And a lot of times when we've gone through things in life that have shell-shocked us, that has knocked us off of our feet, if we don't go back and get power from those places, we have locked up our wealth in that place. We have locked up our progress in that place. The enemy, I explained it to my administrative director, and I said it's kind of like a fishing net, where the enemy had already lined things up. If you look back at your life, things that happened to you did not just take place when you were born. It was a generational thing. It was the people that gave birth to you. It was the people that gave birth to them. So it's like a fishing net that the enemy already have it set up. And when the fish come, he has that net set up to catch them. And if you don't watch it, your self-esteem will get caught up in that event. Your self-worth, your self-value will get caught up in that event. So it's so amazing that we seek God, so that when we see that trap being set, it's important that we go above that fishing net and defy the odds opposed to being caught in it. One person that we're going to talk to in the Bible is a guy by the name, he was at the pool of Bethesda. And this is how he handled his dead situation. It says, John 5:5. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity for 38 years. And that's how long things can just not be making progress. For 38 years, he made no progress. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in the condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?" It is amazing how we come out and we hear the word because we like being in the presence of people that are whole. We like being in the presence of being at church where there is a place of healing. And he showed up at this pool to be a part of the presence. But he could not have wanted it bad enough if Jesus had to ask him, "Do you want to be made well?" Some of us, we show up at church and we put a dress on, but if you're not going back to discuss that area of pain, if you're not going back to address that issue, if you're not going back to take power from that place, then you really don't want to be made well. The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up, but while I am coming, another steps down before me." That was his first mistake. Because he said, "I have no man." When you need a healing, a man cannot give you your healing. Because we are all broken in some area. A man or a woman. Some people say, well, if I have a child, then I can get that love. That child cannot give you that healing. The way we know that everybody's life have gone through some trauma is because Adam and Eve, the first family, went through trauma. Adam's husband completely threw her underneath the bus and said, "God, it was this woman that you gave me." Yes, he did. We're going to tell on him today. You know, and then they went and had children. And one of their kids, Cain, killed Abel. So they had murder, they had dysfunction in the first family. And this is what we pattern the rest of the families after. So when we throw makeup on and try to walk past each other and don't, confide in each other and help out and reach each other and hug that sister that looks like she's hurting, who's in the boardroom, she may not be discussing her issue, but she's carrying it on her sleeve. You can see it in her eyes. When we walk past each other and fake like we have it all together, that's called the spirit of denial. When we don't want to address these issues because we're acting like our family is together and we know Adam and Eve family was together, that's called the spirit of pride. Because we have to humble ourselves to see who we've become. We have to humble ourselves to see how these events have affected us. And by us being human, any trauma that you go through is going to have an effect because we're not a computer. We're not robots. So when we take on that mundane approach of not feeling and being numb, we're actually forcing ourselves to be in a condition that is not natural. Because naturally, as humans, we feel, we cry, and we have emotions, and we do have feelings. Then Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed, and walk." And immediately the man was made well. He took up his bed, and he walked. The next thing that he did that was good, the first thing, when we go to help somebody, we have to assess, where are they? Are they looking for money to make them feel better? Are they looking for people to make them feel better? This man was looking for a man. So when Jesus had assessed that, then after that, he humbled himself. He could have easily said, well, look, who are you talking to? I'm fine right here. But he humbled himself and he gave the explanation of exactly where he was at in life and what thought process was holding him up. After he did that, he followed the instructions that God gave him. He picked up his bed and he walked. But the greatest thing that he did was he opened himself up to God. Most of the time, only God saw what you went through. The people that see you today, they would never understand. They would never even recognize what all you've gone through. In my family, my mom suffered with mental illness. And so growing up, I didn't run from it. I was exposed to a lot. And I didn't run from it because I could have took on a spirit of pride and a spirit of denial. But I said, oh no, devil. I recognized that this was a spiritual battle. Because we wrestle not with flesh and blood. We're not wrestling with man, but we're wrestling with spirits and principalities in wicked places. So I ran after mental illness. I researched it. When I was in school, junior high, I was given free counseling sessions and didn't know what I was doing. But to God be the glory. And after that, I opened up my own mental health clinic because I wanted to be there for other people who have gone through hurt and have gone through pain. As a child, I kind of resented my mom's situation. I battled with low self-esteem, and I learned to slap makeup on it to cover it up. But as an adult, after I allow God to heal me, and I allow God to show me, dear God, why did you let this happen? What plan do you have for me? After that, I realized that my mom's condition was actually my calling. I researched my name. My name is Romonica. Monica means counselor. So the same lady that birthed me had basically the condition of what I was destined to become. And she named me what I would be. So when you go back to that area of pain, you're not going back to be defeated. You're going back because you refuse to be defeated. You've made up in your mind, I'm going to get the victory out of this one way or the other. And so that's exactly what we have to do. Ms. Joyce, Justin, you got the door for me? Okay. That's right. That's exactly what we have to do. Self-esteem, when we have experienced these different things, it does cause us to have low self-esteem. It causes us to doubt each other. The man at the pool of Bethesda, he said, people walk right past me. It causes us to somehow have jealousy or insecurity because we see other people walking right past us. We see other people walking in victory, but it's like we're stuck in the same place for over 38 years. And so because of that trauma, it might affect your self-esteem, it might affect your confidence, it might affect how you communicate or your ability to stay in relationships or to attract healthy relationships. Because a lot of times we're looking at the people that's in front of us, but people only mirror to you how you feel about yourself. So if you, in order to find love in other people, whether it's family or a mate or respect in your children, you have to actually have love for yourself. So when you have inner love and your self-esteem is what it needs to be, then you're going to attract other people who are also alike. Self-esteem is not something that just started in 2015. In Mark 5:5, they say, then they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of Gadarenes. And when he had come out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs. And no one could bind him, not even with chains, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains. And the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces. Neither could anyone tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with the stones. We think that we're very different from this man. But every time you stay in a relationship where there is not love, where there is not respect, where there is not building up, where there is not affirmation, you are cutting yourself to subject yourself to that. Every time we say, well, other people are smarter than me, other people's lifestyle is good, but maybe it's not meant for me to live this way. Maybe it's not meant for me to be successful. Whenever we put ourselves down, just like the man living in this tomb, we are cutting ourselves. Because it's not just physically cutting yourself. You could be doing it emotionally. A lot of times, the people around you, it's not that they don't love you. It's just that their whole life of getting healed and getting whole is based on your healing. When you get healed and when you get whole, you're going to affect change. And they're either going to respect you, treat you the way that you're supposed to be treated, because now you have an expectation of that. You're no longer walking with your head down. You're no longer feeling defeated and unworthy or unvalued because of what you've gone through. You've went back and you've gotten the power out of those things. And when you get the power out of it, not only do you grab the financial or the wealth, but you grab the emotional being healed. You grab your self-esteem. You grab your destiny. You grab your confidence. And when you grab those things, that's going to give you the fuel and give you the fire to affect change in the area of your health, in the area of your wealth, in the area of your relationships. We're going to discuss the lady, the woman that was at the well. And it says, a woman of Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, give me a drink. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. Then the woman of Samaria said to him, how is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. Jesus answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is who says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. So what he was telling her was, he was asking her for physical water. And she was telling him, well, why would I give you anything to drink? You're a Jew. You know that y'all don't deal with us. But Jesus was talking spiritually. And that goes back to people being physically alive, but they're spiritually dead. If this lady was spiritually alive, she would have been able to grasp the spiritual conversation that Jesus was having. And so when he said, you know, if you would have known who I was, you would have asked me for living water. And then the woman said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. We often find excuses to make the changes that we have to make. We often look at the physical things rather than saying, you know what, God, I lay it all down at your feet, dear Lord. This is not anything new for you. This is not anything too hard for you, dear God. So, God, if you've placed me in this situation, I come before your throne boldly, asking that you will have your way and that your will will be done. So she came up with an excuse of not having the well. She said that the well is deep. And the reason why we make excuses is because we're so used to doing it our way. The same way that's not working. The same way that year after year puts us in the same predicament. And so thank God that he was consistent, and he's showing us how to be persistent when we're dealing with clients or we're dealing with people, how still not to give up and to meet them where they're at. And then he said unto her, then she said, where then do you get that living water? Is what she asked him. So it intrigued her. Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as well as his sons and his livestock? Jesus answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman said to him, sir, give me this water that I may not thirst, nor come here to draw. Jesus said to her, God is very humble. He waited for her invitation. He did not push himself on her. He's not going to bogart into your life. If you're okay with being in the same situation, then he's okay with it, okay? And I can say this because this is how he handled me. Romonica, if you want to be in the same situation 20 years, 25, 30 years, we're going to stay right there. But when she said unto him, sir, give me this water, that was his invitation to step right in. Immediately he went to the place of her void. And he said, Jesus said to her, go call your husband and come here. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus asked her that because he knew that she had no husband, but he also knew that was the place of her thirst. That was the place of her thirst. Jesus said to her, you have well said. He said, you have well said, I have no husband. For you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband. Is that you spoke truly, is what he was saying. The woman said to him, sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Now her spiritual eyes are opening up. Our fathers worship on this mountain, and you Jews say that in Jerusalem is the place where one ought to worship. Jesus said to her, woman, believe me, the hour is coming when you will neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father. You worship what you do not know. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour is coming, and now is, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. When Jesus said to her, if you knew who I was, I would give you living water. What he was saying to her is, you have a thirst in man for love. You're looking for love in this person and in this person. But Jesus said, if you knew who I was, if you knew that I came, I wrapped myself up in swaddling clothing. Yeah. He humbled himself to come down through the womb of Mary. If you knew who I was, that I would volunteer to die on the cross for your sins because of my love for you. He said, you're looking for love in men that cannot save you. You're looking for love in men who's also looking for love, because like often attract like. He said, but if you would look at me, you would realize how much I love you, even so much that God gave his only begotten son, that if he had to die on the cross all over again just for you, he would get up there and do it. You don't have to look for love in nobody but him. And that's what he was saying. This thirst that you have, this itch that you have, you're looking for it in the wrong places. But if you would look to me, if you would take me to that dead place. And that's what Mary and Martha did at the tomb. After their brother Lazarus died, Jesus said, show me where you lay him. And that's what we have to do with areas in our life that might cause us to, venture into a lifestyle that's not healthy for us and not healthy for the people around us because of things that we're wrestling with, or not feeling worthy, or not feeling like a man, or dealing with different failures. We have to take God by the hand, and we have to show him where we laid that dead thing. We have to show him the thing that's eating at our destiny, eating at our success, eating at our progress. And Jesus went right to that tomb and he said, Lazarus, come forth. Because he has the power to arise that dead area. And when he called Lazarus' name, he got up in chains and all. But death still could not hold him bound. And in terms of time, Lazarus was dead past the time that was expected. And a lot of times we think, oh, it's too late to talk about that. I should be over that by now. That happened, if I do bring that up, that's going to be a bad reflection on me, that I'm still dealing with that. But when Jesus went to Lazarus in the Bible, he was saying that there is no time that an issue can lie dead, that I don't have the power to resurrect it. So there is nothing in your life that you can't take God back and just get down on your feet and just lay prostrate before him and say, God, you heal me. You make me whole. Another thing that we do have to do, the Lord said that if we would humble ourselves and if we would turn from our wicked ways, then he will hear from heaven and he will heal our land. What he's saying is, somewhere in this thing you have to turn. Because if you keep going down the path that's not working for you, you're going to keep getting the same results. But when you make the decision to obey him and to turn, it's not going to feel good at first. It's going to be painful because your flesh is going to be being buffeted. Your flesh is going to have to die out. But when you make that decision to turn, he will not leave you comfortless. He will be right there. And as long as you walk that path, everything is going to work out. Don't worry about anybody not walking with you. Because the word also says that those that come out from among us, it was because they were not for us. But for those people who are for you, they're going to be better because you made that decision to get healed. They're going to be better that you made that decision to get whole. Okay? I'm going to close out with this poem that I wrote several years ago. And it says, 2013 farewell. It says, thank you, 2013, for you helped me better see myself, Sometimes we have to take a look in the mirror, huh? Which led to me reinventing and redefining myself as I drew closer to God and got to know Him as a healer to a broken soul. I touched the hem of His garment by allowing Him to make me whole. I am more powerful. I am more complete and more confident because of it. I had no idea that for many years I had been operating on broken pieces from broken places that had upon my heart begun to erode the core essence of my soul. For I was like a fine china set who lost its shine, for it had been tarnished. I was like the diamond in the rough that no one else could find. I'd become the salt that had lost its savor. Oh, but how gracious our God truly is. For when no one could see, He remembered the diamond He placed inside of me. He reminded me of who I was created to be. He informed me that despite all I'd gone through, I was beautifully and wonderfully made, and marvelous was the works of His hands when He made me, and that my soul should know right well. That's Psalms 138, 14 through 18. I became more of what He called me to be. But first I humbled myself to see just who I've become. I dealt with some of the unhealed places, and the girl who long stopped caring began to care. The girl who grown numb began to feel. The woman whose eyes saw gray began to see color. The woman who was blind did begin to see. I became less of me and more of who He called me to be, for He had several assignments in me, one of them being you. I had to get whole to be here in my blessed place, here in the midst of freedom and elevation, here where I am strong and bold enough to be transparent enough and to reveal my brokenness so others too may become whole. When God showed the disciples His piercings, He weren't showing them His weakness. He was testifying. His piercings served as a witness to what through God He was strong enough not just to endure, but to overcome. In 2013, I realized that all I'd gone through was to keep me from my blessed place. But I thank God that I made it. One thing that I want to close out with is knowing the identity of who we are in God. Sometimes we lose sight of that because of the dad that was not there, or the event that happened that we don't share with anybody. But let's talk about the plan that God had for us when He created us. And that plan looks like this. I'm going to get it in my notes. It says Genesis 1 through 26, and I thank God for this. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. And a lot of times, when you don't look the way, if it's not pleasing to somebody, you know what